Valentine's Day. The most romantically commercial day of the year where you and your significant other celebrate each other's partnership by doing fun things together, whether it be going out to a nice dinner, doing a fun couples activity, or of course, watching movies. So I figured this year for Valentine's Day, me and my fiancé Anne are gonna do something kind of interesting. Each of us have picked a terrible romance movie to show to the other without telling each other what it is. We're gonna watch them together, review them together, and see what madness occurs. I apologize in advance.
So, honey, would you like to explain your thought process behind the movie that you chose?
So, I chose Titanic 2, and you recommended to me to go through Letterboxd by the romance movies from worst, like ranking it worst to best.
Evidently, that turned out to be a mistake.
There was very, very little romance within this movie. There was more romance in my parents' relationship than there was in this movie. Like,
I feel like this barely counts as a romance movie. I don't know if you understood the assignment or not, but I mean, I'm not complaining because this was very funny, regardless.
In my defense, it is listed as an action-adventure film on Google, but the first Titanic movie was
which we did watch.
hell.
We did watch it together, which was amazing.
Yeah, we didn't even expect to like it. Sure, we joked around a lot, but it was actually a very beautiful movie.
Like, I went in wanting to hate it, but by the end I'm like, God damn it, this is really good. Honestly, this probably fits the fact that we're watching Titanic 2, even though it has nothing to do with the original Titanic.
Okay, this is like how many years later? Like 100 years later?
Yeah, it takes place on the 100th anniversary of the real life Titanic, and they decided, oh, we're gonna build a second ship, call it Titanic 2, and invite all these people on a cruise
and follow the exact same like pathway
across like the Atlantic Ocean or whatever.
And they're like, we're gonna make history with this trip, with this cruise.
And everyone under the sun is saying like, oh, this is a bad idea. What if is the ship equipped to handle icebergs? I feel like the appropriate thing to say is, hey, don't you think this is a little insensitive considering like hundreds and thousands of people died?
The only person in this movie who seemed to have his shit together was the captain of the helicopter, the pilot.
Yeah.
I think his name was also James.
His name was James, yeah, which I thought was very funny.
So, it's not like the first movie where the couple falls in love on the ship. These two are already like exes.
Yeah.
They've already dated each other. It's hinted that they broke up because his dad punched him in the nose and the kid was being a dipshit and yada yada. He appears with literally like a swath of women like on either side of him.
Yeah, like literally, he has like 3 or 4 women like attached to either side of him throughout like 50% of this movie, and it was always constantly funny.
We were really hoping that they would be with him throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, like as they're like charging into the lifeboats and they're just like
Spoiler alert, it is very much like the first one. They just add fire and explosions and a second iceberg.
I feel like it's an appropriate time to mention that this is an asylum movie. This is done by the guys that did the Sharknado movies, and they've done like a bunch of really cheap, shitty mockbusters in the past and stuff like that. So, number one, the fact that it's this over-the-top, like, cartoony, to like the point where like, oh, it's not just an iceberg this time, it's a tsunami mixed with that keeps launching icebergs at the ship and everything.
The CGI is terrible as well. Like, well, the ice would
what
break.
Little of it you could see. Like, that climax was like darker than most horror movies that like I've seen that take place at night. I get the feeling they did it on purpose to hide the effects. It just made it look like there was nothing there.
Yeah. There's this one scene where the ice is cracking because of an earthquake or something like that, and you described it as like taking an eraser in Photoshop and erasing the layer on top of it and revealing the underneath layer.
Which did you think was funnier, this or Sharknado?
I think Sharknado.
Yeah.
I loved Sharknado. That was great.
Sharknado was just so charming in how bad it was. And also considering it was like one of the first Asylum movies, you hadn't really gotten used to their sort of so bad it's good and cheaply cobbled together sort of formula that I think it made for a funnier movie. And the fact that we saw it in theaters.
I forgot we saw that in theaters.
Is for the 10th anniversary.
The couple does kiss by the end of it. But they don't even bang. There's no sex scene.
There's no drawing. They don't draw each other like one of their French girls. I personally felt very ripped off. It was a lot of just laughing at the bad VFX and some of the line deliveries, but honestly, like, I don't know about you, but like, especially by the end of it, I was kind of bored.
Yeah, I was ready for the movie. And you know what? It didn't even have an ending. Like, it did, but it didn't... It didn't put a pin in it. Or, no, that's not the right word I'm looking for. It didn't wrap it up. It just, guy dies. He dies, and they literally...
I didn't even know that he did die at first. I was like, did she resuscitate him or not? Like, I literally, like, I looked down at my phone, and then I looked up, and then the credits were rolling. I'm like, wait, what happened?
There's quite literally, like, a minute or two worth of just her, like, breathe! And it cuts to the dad and, like, the lady, and then back to her doing the CPR. I was even telling you, I'm like, this is so awkward if you take away the music. They're just staring at her, not saying anything. Not a, he's gone, honey, or no sympathy, just like
most Asylum films, the performances in this are questionable, to say the least.
There's moments where people die or get injured, and the main girl is like...
It's because they're trying not to laugh.
When it finally shows that he's died, it just pans to his face and then switches over to, like, I think it was just a view of the ocean with, like, the sun rising, and then credits.
I mean, it was abrupt, but at the same time, I was also kind of like, thank God.
Yeah, I do appreciate it for ending it where it needed to and not trying to add on more lore or, like, a second boyfriend or bringing him back.
Honestly, like I said, I was just, like, bordering back and forth between just, like, laughing at the bad dialogue and laughing at the VFX to just kind of waiting for it to be over, and also being really pissed off about the lack of romance. I mean, unless you count the blatant sexual tension between the helicopter pilot and that one, like, scientist lady.
I was gonna say, it felt like there was more chemistry between those two than these ex-lovers. Like, the amount of support this scientist was giving him throughout the whole movie, like, yeah. She was really vouching for him to find his daughter.
What did you rate it? I forgot to ask.
Maybe a 2.5 even. Yeah, it felt longer than it was, even for a short movie, but it was funny, it was fun to make fun of. Even though it was bad, at least it was always interesting, at least there was always things happening. And at least there was always something to keep your attention, even if it's something that's bad about the movie. Like, wow, this ice looks terrible. Wow, the acting is bad in this scene. Wow, that girl's nipple is showing.
I gave this a 1. There was funny moments, but I mean, I feel like in terms of, like, cheap mockbusters or whatever, like I said, I feel like Sharknado was just kind of a more funny experience. And yeah, like I said, it was a mixture of just laughing and being bored, but you know, I will give you credit. I do feel like you picked the better movie out of us. I love the way you look tonight. First off, I would like to apologize. Well, I should mention a little bit of context. The movie is called Old Fashioned. It was released in 2014. It was basically made as sort of a religious alternative to 50 Shades of Grey. There were people online saying, like, oh, finally a romance movie that isn't just about, like, sex and nudity and is actually about, like, love, which I don't know what the fuck they're smoking when they say shit like that. When we first said we were gonna do this, I kind of already had that in the back of my head as, like, something to pick, just out of morbid curiosity, just to be like, oh, well, if anything else, this might be, like, a little funny. And I regretted it pretty much immediately. It was so... It made me physically uncomfortable to watch. So basically the movie is about this young girl, Amber, who moves to town, and she rents an apartment above this guy Clay's woodworking shop. Clay is also the writer and director, by the way. I feel like that's important to mention right off the bat, just for when we start talking about the rest of this. But it very clearly finds him attractive, but he has this rule and this set of rules that he set for himself, that he doesn't want to be alone with a woman before he's married, which is already an immediate fucking red flag.
She's like, ooh, mysterious, that's hot.
Yeah, and then like over the course of like the first act of the movie, she starts like wrecking things in her apartment so that she has an excuse to see him, but he won't allow her to be in the same room with her, with him, so he makes her wait outside while she's fixing like her sink and her refrigerator and everything like that. Over the course of these like couple days, she asks him about sort of his beliefs and why he is the way that he is, and he says things like, oh, I don't think dating trains us to be good life partners, it only trains us to be good dates, and only like be trained in the superficial. And I'm like, dude, what kind of dates have you been on? And I mean, they do address it later on. They do go into his sort of his backstory later on. He's basically like, I don't do regular dating because I think it's just small talk that leads to sex. And he even says like nothing good happens after 11.
Man, it really is the opposite of 50 Shades.
50 Shades of Grey tackles physical abuse to an extent, and this one tackles emotional and psychological abuse. Like when he's talking about his rules, and when they do finally decide to start dating, and they immediately go to church and get this book of just really creepy and invasive questions that he forces her to ask and everything like that. It doesn't even feel like romantic or whatever. It feels like indoctrination. It feels like this poor girl is being indoctrinated into a cult. What did you think of it?
I actually thought it was okay.
Really?
I haven't seen a lot of religious movies, but considering this was meant to be a religious movie, I don't think I would have fully clocked it watching this. I want to be clear. I am an atheist, alright?
Same.
The defense I have for this movie is not because of anything religious.
I feel like even religious people would find the shit that's in this movie really creepy and offensive.
I do think it's, obviously, he's the weirdo of the town, right? But everything within the relationship seemed consensual. I don't know where you're coming from with emotional, and yeah, it was weird, but for a little bit, she seemed willing to go with it and see where it goes. But she wanted more to the relationship. She didn't want it to just be that. She wanted it to be, as she said, normal.
They also make it very clear, especially throughout the course of the movie, that she's been in a series of very like bad relationships. So you can tell that like she's already kind of screwed up a little bit. So in a weird way, it does kind of make sense that she would be kind of drawn to this guy who seems, I don't know, kind of chivalrous and respectful and shit like that. But like, it doesn't come across.
Lady.
Yeah. God. He's even wearing a fucking like fedora at the end of it. It doesn't come across as like, oh, he's just being gentlemanly. It comes across as he's a fucking sex offender who's not allowed to be alone with people, and he only wants to be alone with her where it's out in the open, where there are witnesses.
Isn't that kind of the point though? Like, he himself has that guilt, and it makes him feel like a sex offender because of something that he did in his past. And even his grandmother or his mom or whatever was telling him, you are holding on to this guilt and it's making you a fucking weirdo. You need to get your shit together and go kiss the girl or something.
So that's the thing. Like, if the movie was building up to him learning that lesson of just like, just chill out and lighten up, you don't need to like try this hard and everything like that, we know you're a good guy. If it was building up to him learning that, then that would be one thing, but the rest of the movie doesn't really read like that because of just how he talks to Amber and how he like forces his like guilt and his like beliefs onto her, and how he almost is kind of like shaming her for wanting to be more intimate and wanting to like get closer to him and everything like that. Like the scene with the stripper later when he's at his friend's like bachelor party, and he forces this stripper out of the hotel room and turns off the music, and the best friend isn't cheating on anyone. He's just like, well, for one, he didn't even order the stripper. One of the other people at the party did. He comes across as A, creepy, and B, just really judgmental for no reason. And like they do provide context of he used to be a pornographer before like starting up his woodworking business. Like he did these like kind of Girls Gone Wild tapes where it does feel like he's just filming these girls like who are like drunk and crying, and it just looks uncomfortable. So like yeah, you can tell that he has that sort of guilt on top of, you know, a lot of baggage from his previous relationship and everything like that. But it's like, it feels like he's using that sort of guilt as an excuse to be an asshole to everyone and judge them for just wanting to have a good time and how they approach relationships and everything like that.
I don't know, maybe you and I are interpreting this differently, because I didn't have a problem with the bachelorette scene. I think it's fucked up to invite a stripper to someone who's getting married's party. If someone invited a stripper to your bachelor party, I'd be livid. He goes on to say, hey man, I almost made a big mistake.
Well, he said like, I didn't know he was gonna do that about the other guy.
Yeah, but you can't argue that what Clay did wasn't completely wrong, especially knowing like he's friends with both the guy and his wife, and like I wouldn't sit there and do that, like sit through that if it was like a good friend of mine. I'd be like, I don't think I'd be like public about it, I'll say that, like being outright like that, because why would you invite Clay to a party like that?
Yeah.
Everybody knows he's the weirdo.
Right.
But like the fact that all those dudes were there and goggling about it's just so disgusting in of itself. I feel like it's weird to defend them rather than Clay in that situation.
I mean, I'm not defending them, especially not the guy who ordered the stripper, because like he's equally an asshole but for a different reason. He's the guy that runs this sexist radio show who is constantly talking about like who's just constantly belittling women on the air, and like he's a troll essentially. So like I'm not defending him, and I'm not defending everyone else at the party, but I feel like Clay, he was just overreacting and everything like that. It's not like the guy was cheating on her or he was gonna like fuck her. Like he was just getting a lap dance, which I mean is innocent enough, I guess, but like
I wouldn't mind if you got a lap dance. I would just want you to tell me about it.
But yeah, like I feel like everyone in that party except for the stripper and the husband are kind of in the wrong there.
Wait, so you don't even think the husband is at fault? I'm sorry, I'm still stuck on this. You can't, okay, listen. There is something called, what is it called? You play ignorant, I guess. I mean, not that way, but like, where you just let things happen. And you can't say that you're at fault because they're happening to you, and oh, I guess I can't stop this, it's happening. No, you can! You have control over that situation. If Clay didn't say anything, he would have let that happen. It was playing out that way. You could see it on his face.
Well, yeah, but he was hesitant, and B, he was just like, all right, well, like, whatever. But like, I don't really necessarily think you can knock the husband for it, because again, like I said, it's not like he was fucking her or anything like that. It's not like he was cheating.
I feel like you and I have very different ideas of cheating here.
Well, again, if it makes you feel any better, I'm not gonna bring a stripper to my bachelor party.
It's fine. With the questions, man, is it fucked up that I'm curious about a book like... I'm not saying I want to go through a book like that with you, or that I feel like I need that. But I feel like that was interesting.
I feel like it's different for couples that are already in a relationship. When they go to the church and the pastor gives them the book.
Known each other for one day.
Yeah, when the pastor hands them the book and he's like, oh, how long have you two been together? And he's like, oh, we just met. And the pastor looks like, even he's kind of confused about like, All right. And like, I feel like that type of a book is for couples who have maybe hit a rough patch or are just kind of like have gotten distant and are trying to like rekindle something. Not for two people who just met like less than
checklist.
Like less than a week ago.
Maybe.
Like,
yes. Oh, that's hot.
Because she shows this book to a few of her friends, and they're like, and she's trying to be all, again, like, sort of feigning innocent of like, oh, it's sweet, it's like, yeah, it's a little weird, and like, the friends are kind of looking at her like, are you reading the same question? Because like, there's shit like, how are you with kids? How many kids would you like to have? And shit like that. He brings her to, his friend's house to teach her how to cut up pears for his friend's baby.
Okay, that was pretty weird.
That was fucking weird. You do not do that to someone who you just met and are just now getting into a relationship with.
I don't know. Maybe the reason why I have such a skewed perspective on it is because I have a different perception of boundaries as well. Like, these are a lot of questions I probably would have asked you when we started dating. Like, even if it wasn't from a book. It just seemed like because this guy is so inept of dating, like he has to follow a book. He doesn't know how to date. This guy is such an incel that he doesn't know how to date. Like I said, she seemed at least consensual to it. She knew how to say no. This is a woman who knows what her wants are, and she's very vocal about it throughout the movie. She knows how to get him in her house. Like if she was, okay, I'm not trying to defend the movie entirely. It sounds like I am. I kind of am. I'm not saying I like it either. I'm defending it in a way that it was okay. It's not the piece of shit on the sidewalk that you probably think that it is. But it's not a great romance movie. There's still, even when we started the movie, I was like, this guy looks like he's got like more than a decade on her. Like,
yeah.
Like she looks like she's in her mid-20s and he looks like he's near 40s. And then when you told me that it was the writer-director that was playing that guy, that also feels weird and almost wrong.
It seems like he's projecting a lot of his, like, frustrations about being rejected into this movie and into this character.
Yeah,
like,
at least it wasn't overly pushy on Christian values, I guess. I mean,
it kind of was, though.
It was really just Clay. No one, even the grandma was like, hey, you're a little too Christian there, buddy. You need to tone it down.
I mean, yeah.
It felt like, it was there, but I feel like it was more toned down compared to other Christian movies.
It seemed like he was using faith as, like, an excuse to act the way that he was acting. He
honestly was.
Yeah.
I will say there aren't a lot of flaws written into Clay either. Like, it feels like he is written to be, like, the white knight, the perfect guy. Like, yeah, he's weird, but he's perfect. Like, no, he's not. What he is doing is weird and creepy. At the same time, this girl's kind of a weirdo. She's kind of a freak about it, you know? If she wanted to leave, she would have, and she even wants him to chase her.
You bring that up, that is a good point. Like, as much as I've been ragging on Clay for, like, his behavior in the movie, she's not all that better. I mean, like,
she's breaking shit in her house to get him to come back.
Yeah,
she was pouring blueberries in her sink.
Yeah, she stuffs up her garbage disposal. She drills holes in her refrigerator, and she takes the hinges off of her screen door. And somehow this guy has not handed her an eviction notice.
She gives him an unmarked pill for his allergies. He's like, oh, you have a little sneeze?
Oh,
I have a pill ready for you and hot chocolate.
It's like, oh, you're allergic to my cat? Here's an unmarked allergy pill. This shit doesn't work without, like, horror movie music.
A lot of the romance in this movie is also very corny.
They don't have really good chemistry or dialogue. Like, one of the first lines in the movie is, that's a lot of hooey.
I like the female actress.
She's one of the only actors in this movie that comes out as unscathed as possible, but the writing wasn't doing her any favors.
Yeah.
I don't really have much else to say. Like, beyond it being really creepy and awkward, a lot of it was just kind of boring. It's almost 2 hours.
There's a lot of, like, montages.
There's a lot of, like, just somber shots of, like, Clay walking on the train tracks and Amber driving through town. Angsty basketball. And
this movie did not need to be 2 hours.
Yeah, it was just so fucking painful.
No, that I can agree with you. This was boring.
Yeah.
This was so boring.
Honestly, more than anything, I just feel dirty having given this movie my attention, because I knew it was going to be bad from the reviews of it that I had seen, but it was somehow worse than I thought it was. What would you rate it?
I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it. Give it a 1.5 because that's how much I wanted to speed up the movie to sit through it.
This is a 0.5 out of 5. This movie was awful. Even as an ironic viewing, or even as like a bad movie night, like at best you'll be bored, and at worst, if you're like me, you'll just be uncomfortable and like offended.
L is for the way you look at me.
Well, this was a terrible video. I'm glad you enjoyed it, honey.
Can we watch some good romance movies now?
We will absolutely watch some good romance movies, but let me know in the comments what you thought of this. Did you enjoy this video? What are some of the worst romance movies that you've seen? Let me know that stuff down in the comments. I've got more videos coming soon, but until then, be sure to like, subscribe, ring the notification bell so you can stay up to date on when I'm posting. Follow me on my social media, subscribe to my main channel. Everything you need to know will be in the description. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, honey, for joining me.
Yeah.
I love you.
I love you too.
And I'll see you guys later.
Bye.